You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Parker Rangers, those are Locked On Coogs. You're bringing out Houston's big addition to the secondary and how Houston now has the best secondary in the Big 12. I don't want to start by, I guess, looking back and saying, like, they were pretty darn close to that a year ago, right? The Big 12 was not the offensive league it was in, like, 2011, 2012. There were some ground and pound teams, some good defensive teams, and Heisman Trophy winners and stuff like that, right? But on the whole, it still was a league that had a lot of points scored in it. It wasn't that it's dramatic, obviously, but it was a lot of points scored. And Houston's defense managed to come in ranked really high last year. They finished the season, again, a season that they went 4-8 in. We're not an impressive record or anything like that, but their defense was 40th in total defense, 28th in passing yards allowed nationally, right? Now, I know on the front part of that defense, you're losing Keith Cooper as a pass rusher, and he's going to the NFL. It's going to be fun to watch him play on Sundays. But on the whole, most of your secondary is coming back off of that already very talented defense. And before we get into the personnel of it, the defense should be on the field even less given the improvements you're making on offense, right? Last year, the defense would spend 2/3, 3/4 of the game sometimes on the football field. Well, that's a lot of snaps. That leads to things like a lot of yardage. Frankly, there's more chances to make a bust and have a touchdown allowed. Like that's not a good recipe for success, right? And I understand. I can see the commenter typing right now. Yes, a great defense. Their job is to get off the field, right? Like, okay, got it. But on the whole, the offense also has to be complementary, right? Last year's was not. This year's is visibly already better. You're hoping that it is, right? From a personnel standpoint, you look at last year's very talented defense. You had Latron McCutchin coming back at corner. Jeremiah Wilson thought about leaving, coming back at corner. Kentrell Webb, safety, coming back at safety. Oh, and A.J. Haulcy, future pro, first team all Big 12, Phil Steele, All-American honorable mention, led the Big 12 interceptions. Again, lucky he's not going to the NFL right now. He's coming back as well. Then you're like, okay, that's 4 of the 5 spots. Looking for someone to play that 5th spot. We don't necessarily know exactly what Austin Armstrong is going to want to do with this secondary coming from Florida, but most every defense in modern football needs a 5th DB on the field. Insert Keionte Scott, we just talked about in the first segment, right? Who plays that nickelback / low safety position. Again, you're reuniting him with Zach Etheridge and seeing what kind of a tandem you can create there if you can get the same magic you saw from him in 2023. If someone breaks a shoelace, you can see someone come in at that point in the game. You bring in Marc Stampley, the safety from Georgia, was an all Sun Belt performer, had 3 interceptions and a forced fumble last year, and moved from corner to safety mid-season. So again, a guy with some versatility, can sub a few spots, and has been a experienced college football player at a high level and was excelling at the level he was at, comes to Houston and the Big 12. Okay. Also, that's just Stampley came in over the weekend. You got Jordan Allen from LSU, who was a highly ranked recruit when he went to LSU, had limited snaps while he was there. But if you're getting that high-end 4-star kid, I think that's worth pointing out that that's a good football player as well. You get a chance to develop him, get him on the field. Will James, who's at Southern Mississippi, he was at Auburn out of high school in 2023. Yes, the same beloved 2023 Zach Etheridge was there. That keeps on coming back around. He started every game at Southern Miss last year. Really good tackler. His PFF grades are pretty good. He was better in coverage. Again, per PFF grades, I only watched like highlights on YouTube, but per PFF grades, it looks like he was better in coverage against like higher caliber opponents, which I think is interesting to see, especially considering his coverage, like his snaps and coverage count was really kind of the same against most teams. And so, I think that's an interesting guy to keep in the back of your mind is like, what is Will James going to play? Is he going to be a corner, low corner? Is he going to be an outside corner? Where's he going to play? Who's he going to fill in for? Where's he going to fit? Again, he's relatively young. I don't think he's like anywhere near done. And speaking of relatively young, remember that Maurice Williams guy? High-end recruit in 2024. He played a little bit last year, but not a whole lot. A tremendous spring game in the spring of 2024, just playing at a position that's very crowded with Kentrell Webb and A.J. Haulcy and all those kind of things. Well, Mo Williams was a high-end four-star, one of the highest ever come to Houston at high school himself. You think of with a year in the weight room, a year in the speed program, a year of Division I football. The guy is only going to keep finding more spots to get on the field. The secondary is really, really talented. Now, they have two corners with some length, especially Latron McCutchin with some real length out there. Outside of that, the biggest knock you could put on this guys is you don't have a whole bunch of the 6'4s running around or whatever. And I don't know how many true 4.3s you've got. But on the whole, these guys are all very solid in coverage, pretty sound tacklers. And then, frankly, what I appreciate as a guy that likes to run the football as an offensive guy, they've got several guys, right? Scott, Haulcy, to some degree also Webb, although he typically was lined up pretty far away for this kind of stuff. Go back and watch Will James, watch some Mo Williams high school tapes. Several guys that will knock your block off. And these guys, when they fill down to run, I mean, you saw Haulcy do it a lot last year. When they fill down in the run game, they fill hard. And I think, truthfully, that's almost to the benefit of their coverage because that receiver that's supposed to be blocking them sees how they're tackling, right? Like, this is more of a psychology part of football than the X's and O's part of football. But if I'm playing receiver and I'm coming in through in a crack and I see I'm supposed to block you and I see you fly 1,000 miles an hour and take a helmet off of a running back, I'm going to be thinking about that the next time I'm supposed to catch the football, right? Like that's a very natural part of the game. It's very, very like football's a violent sport, right? But it's hard not to have that cemented in the receiver's, mindset. And then you're also in filling that hard in the run game, working that receiver trying to block you. And that makes that job really difficult. And that makes it, frankly, not a playoff. Sometimes you'll see receivers try and take plays off, stuff like that. Like, that really, really works them as well. I like the secondary a lot. I think the reason it's going to be the tops in the Big 12 is because you've got continuity at 4 of the 5 spots. You got talent at that 5th spot and all the depth spots. And, frankly, you've got some young guys, again, Jordan Allen, Mo Williams, that can kind of elevate themselves and, like, play with really talented guys around them and kind of like the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing, right? I think it's a really, really good group for them. And frankly, look, I don't know. I don't know who's going to have a bunch of success passing the ball against the University of Houston. I don't see it happening. I know I can hear Cam Stewart, Locked On Baylor, talking about Sawyer Anderson and who knows whatever Texas Tech's paying for XYZ quarterback, and I'll hear from Chris Level, or whatever. And Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, seems to never think Houston's going to be good at anything, and he'll talk about go up and down or whatever. That they can have their prerogatives. We'll have the football field next fall. This is a really, really good secondary. And I really think that when you factor in the shifts in the roster from last year to this year and so on, they've got a real chance to be the best secondary in the Big 12. And maybe I'm enjoying looking at the future too much. I don't know. But in the last segment here, before we get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about the future, the class 2026, and the quarterback coming in that class that had an incredible weekend, and one you kind of want to go back and watch. Talk about that in 1 second, but first, I got to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Best place to get last tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. As we wind down the college football playoff, it's an incredible experience. You got to get tickets to it. And so if you're going to get tickets to something like that, college football playoff game, big Houston basketball game, whatever, you got to go to Game Time to do it. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. Filters out all the fluff and only shows you the incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks for actually holiday gifts for games, giving people an experience, right? Was kind of a big thing for me this year. Browsing through the deals is a breeze. great value, all kinds of seats all throughout the venue. You could see exactly what's going to look like from that seat in that arena for that type of event. All-in pricing, didn't have any surprises at the end. The on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee give me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last today's lowest prices guaranteed.